Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another fine Wednesday morning here in the city of Philadelphia. Welcome to another coffee break chat. I'm your host, James Jackson, he, they pronouns, executive producer, Light Thief Productions. We've got a good show for you today. A lot of interesting stuff going on, lots of stuff to talk about. As always, my special guest, Dolly the cat, she just jumped in my lap in case you saw that. The wonders of producing things at home. I wanted to look up a thing that I just heard on the news. Because I wanted to get the details correct. Yes, the Sri Lankan president has fled the country in pre-dawn hours, but on the day that he was supposed to give his resignation to the parliament. Sri Lanka has a president and a prime minister and a parliamentary system in addition to the president. If you're ever wondering what should happen in a normal society with a disgraced president and who's being accused of multiple crimes and a lot of malfeasance, this is perhaps what should happen, arguably. The Sri Lankan president fled the country, taking their equivalent of Air Force One, and going to everywhere that is not under the control of his government. The country he fled to, I believe the Maldives, has said that the Maldives said that they won't extradite him back to his own country, and they won't stop him from leaving the country so long as he's a sitting president. Um, so good luck there. It's interesting, like what happens in real societies when folks have things go wrong, and there are consequences. Um, we'll talk a little bit about consequences, but first I wanted to talk about the topic for the title for today. The world would be poorer and life duller if we were all the same. That comes from a quote, "We should celebrate neurodiversity. The world would be poorer and duller if we were all the same," by Neil Milliken. Mr. Milliken is the lead of uh, global head of accessibility at Atos. He also is a PhD in accessibility and disability access. This is July, so it is Disability Pride Month. Disability Pride Month is designed to recognize that there are people of a diverse background, other than just recognizably diverse, many people with both hidden and not hidden disabilities interact with the world in a different way than neurotypical or typically abled persons, and so they celebrate the diversity of people's abilities this month. It's also the month that is the anniversary of the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, which gives people equal access and prohibits the discrimination of people against people due to their abilities. So, yeah, I think it's important to celebrate diversity in all of its forms. And it's important that we recognize that people are differently abled sometimes, and whether we see it or don't see it, it's still important to understand that it is part of our society and part of what makes us an interesting place to live. I'm going to bring on screen our special guests. Bear with me a moment. We have two sets of special guests, three total people. And let me bring them on screen here. I have, sorry, lost my mouse there for a second. I have Bree from Philly Trans March to talk about non-binary People's Day. And we have from Bootless Stageworks, Rosanne and Shaun to talk about Evil Dead the musical. Let's start introductions with Rosanne and Shaun. If you would introduce yourselves, your pronouns, what it is you do, and then we'll do introductions with Bree, and then we'll go into People's Day, non-binary People's Day. So, Rosanne.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much. My name is Rosanne Dellaversano, and I am the Executive and Artistic Director for Bootless Stageworks. My pronouns are she, her.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Shaun. I am the director of Evil Dead and also a performer at Bootless, and my pronouns are he, him.
Great. And Bree.
My name is Bree. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I'm one of the organizers of Philly Trans March.
Great. Bree, tell us a little bit about Philly Trans March as an organization, and then also a little bit about non-binary People's Day celebration. And I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a tongue twister, and I am not the best speaker in the world.
No, it's understandable. I get tongue twisted all the time. I'm probably going to get tongue twisted explaining this. So Philly Trans March is a grassroots organization that was founded in 2011 as a response to the murder of Stacey Blonick, and then just throughout the past like decade, we've just been having marches ever since. It wasn't until 2000, I'm going to believe 20, we started having more events besides just the actual march itself, because we still need to tell the world, specifically within our city, state, and just wherever, about what's happening with the trans community, our rights being violated, especially with all these bills being introduced into government. So we just started having other events to highlight our members of our community, such as for Trans Day Remembrance, Trans Day Visibility, and we also decided just on a whim, literally right after Trans Day Visibility, we should do something for non-binary People's Day, because I'm non-binary. And that's kind of what led us to just deciding literally on a whim that we wanted to have a non-binary People's Day celebration, because we've never seen or done anything like this within the city. So that's kind of what led to that. I was like, we really should do something for us non-binary folks to show that, hey, we're still here despite, what the government wants to do with us. We're still going to be here. We're still going to be visible. We're still going to be happy, and we're still going to celebrate.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what led to that.
Yeah. It is interesting that there hasn't been a non-binary People's Day celebration before. There are lots of non-binary folks. I think it's becoming a bit more open to identifying as non-binary. It used to be pretty strict that identifying as either male or female, and so I'm sure as a non-binary person of color, you can probably explain this better than I can. But if from everything that I've ever seen, gender is a spectrum. So what have you seen that or read, or like, are there any little factoids or pieces of information that can help somebody who maybe doesn't understand what non-binary means, understand what non-binary means?
Well, I just want to just before like just clarify that the idea of the two gender spectrum is rooted in colonialism. Because if you talk to anyone that's native, because we have part of our organizing committee, we have a couple folks that are native who identify as two-spirit. If you talk to folks that are native and or indigenous, and it doesn't have to be in the U.S., it can be like indigenous to other regions. They'll tell you that there have always been a variety of gender spectrums. I think it was in the indigenous Indonesian communities, like I believe they have like 6 different genders. So, so the concept of having more than one gender is just not new. It's just that colonialism has and religion has kind of like made it so that no, it has to only be 2 genders. But if you talk to folks who are indigenous, they'll tell you that like in their culture and just within like that, it's always been more than one culture. And however, understanding so that we do live in a colonial society, so it's ingrained in us to that if you see someone, it's either they're a boy or a girl, they're a male or a female. And and also, let's not get into the whole topic of intersex erasure. Even with folks who are born intersex, it was always like, well, do you want them to be a male, or do you want them to be a female? We just started um allowing folks, well, I don't want to say we, because it was up to me, everyone will be who they are. There has we already just started. There are some states that have already banned like surgeries for intersex children. So like pretty much saying allow them to be intersex. Um, so for folks that are, I'm sorry if I'm talking in like circles here.
No, no,
So
you're doing just fine.
yeah, so for folks that are like interested in like learning just the concept of like what non-binary means, they could like look up what two-spirit means, look up like indigenous cultures throughout the world, and understand like what their concept of gender means. There's also folks who openly identify as intersex. You can speak to them. And as far as like the history of like non-binary becoming on the rise, they can definitely, I don't want to sit here and say they can just simply do a Google search, but there's plenty of like books that you can read that or articles that you can like look up that discusses non-binaryism. There's also like TikTokers and Instagrammers that you can follow. Like one of my favorite TikTokers is, I think their name is Fem Daddy or Fem King. They're like my favorite TikToker. There's also like non-binary nomads on Instagram. I think they may be on TikTok. Like there's so many like folks that you can follow. Just like, go on TikTok and like type in non-binary, and then you'll see all of these influencers who like literally take the time to like in a an understandable way of discussing like what their journey is, what is non-binaryism, how has it been for them, and also folks should also like naturally just come to the gripes that like yeah, as a not like as folks that are like outside the two gender spectrum, we're not a monolith. Everyone's gender is different. Because there's always this assumption that non-binary folks have to appear as androgynous, they have to appear as a certain way, and that's no longer the case. Like we define our gender.
Right,
So
right. And I think I'm a bit of a nerd, so my interest, where I find the most interest, is always like when you get biologists involved in the conversation, and they're like, "Yeah, no, there's no place in biology where any animal, any species that they're strictly male and or female. Like it's biologically everybody's on a spectrum of gender." Or
there's 26 different chromosomes.
yeah,
So
a universe of gender, I guess you could say. Um, let's talk a little bit about your the sorry. Um,
Non-binary People's Day picnic.
yeah, let's talk a little bit about that for a sec. Um,
Uh,
that is, Meg has put that up in the chat that it's on July 17th from 1 to 5 p.m. in Clark Park.
yes. Yes, it's going to be there. We're going to have vendors. I will say that we just looked at the weather. It looks like it's going to rain that day, but no worries. In the event that it does thunderstorms, we will be moving it to Church of the Calvary. They had generously just said, "Hey, you can use the space for this thing," so it will we'll still have the event regardless, whether it's indoor or outdoor. So, in
Awesome.
the event that weather permitting, so because we
Awesome.
don't want people to be out in the rain.
What kind of things you're expecting to do and or have there?
Honestly, we'll be having food there. We sorry, I'm tongue tied.
That's all right.
West Philly Food Not Bombs and Food Not Bomb Solidarity will be there giving out free food to folks, free water and snacks. We'll also be having a lot of vendors. PTM will be selling like some of our merch for fundraising purposes because like every dollar we make, it goes right to the march. There's going to be like a variety of vendors. We specifically chose like non-binary vendors because non-binary people say. And then people can just come to the park, see the vendors, chill. Like it's just like kind of view it as like literally it's a big picnic. We kind of just wanted everyone to like celebrate. So,
Awesome.
and in the event that it has to move indoors, well, we may have some surprises for folks if it does have to move indoors.
Awesome. Let's talk to a little bit about Evil Dead the musical. Roseanne, Shaun, tell us about Evil Dead the musical. What brought you to do Evil Dead the musical, and where is it, and when is it?
Okay, well, Bootless has been doing Evil Dead since 2009. Is that right, Shaun? That sounds
I
right.
think so, yeah.
2009. We were one of the first theater companies in the country to get it when it was first licensed. And we did that at our former home when we were not Bootless, but Arden Club Theater, and that was Arden Guild Hall. And it's just a fan favorite. So we started doing it on a regular basis. And then we actually started finding other what we call bloody horror musicals. And we have done things Texas Chainsaw Musical, which Shaun was in,
That was my
Musical of the
first
Living,
bloody musical.
yeah, Musical of the Living Dead, which Shaun was in, Evil Dead the Musical, which Shaun was in, and we wrote our own parody of the Shaun of the Dead movie, You've Got Red on You, which Shaun stars in because he plays Shaun. So it's just something that we do every summer, this bloody horror musical, that we create a pit splatter zone where it rains blood inside the theater from the ceiling. It comes up from the floor. It's coming up all over, from the stage, from the actors. And the audience loves it. It's their little campy thing to do in the summertime at Bootless.
Awesome.
Not
And
to mention all the water allows you to kind of cool off in the hot summer heat.
uh, well, I suppose with the red dye and or whatever else you put in there.
Mm-hmm. Then we run the air conditioners, and a lot of times we get a couple of people who are be like, "Could you turn the air conditioner down? I'm wet. I'm cold."
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me when we built special effects for oh shoot, what's the one that's set on the beach? It's like it's a beach it's a stage piece, but it's based on like the beach movies. Um,
Oh, I can't think of the name of it.
at any
Oh
rate.
my goodness, I can't think of it either. Oh, I know it though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we built a spray head for a splash zone that literally sprayed blood on people like a hose. Um, where is Evil Dead the Musical going to be put up?
Okay, so it's a Bootless, and we are in Wilmington, Delaware. What really freaks a lot of people out is we're in the basement of a church.
Mm.
We've taken their old social hall and taken it through an $90,000 renovation and turned it into like a black box theater. It's a small theater. It's not a big stage or anything of that. But and again, in Wilmington, it's 1301 North Broome Street. You can find everything that you need on Facebook, or if you just search Bootless Stageworks on Google, it'll come up. And we open this Friday.
Great.
So Shaun is directing it. I took him off the stage this time and I made him direct it. So he can talk a little bit more about what's going on and what's in his head on this one.
Oh yeah, I mean, after years and years of going through this and doing these shows, it's a different perspective, and I at the same time am missing being up there and having the fun, and also enjoying getting to like have the control of saying, and this is where you're going to splash blood, and this is the look that you need to have for this, and kind of guiding a whole bunch of new people to the Bloody Summer experience for the first time, and help them find the joy in just bringing ridiculous comedy to an audience.
Awesome. So I'm gonna rough transition. Sorry for the rough transition. I've been working. I've been doing these live shows for nearly 2 years now, and I still can't figure out exactly how to every time transition seamlessly from topic to topic. Um, just doesn't work out for some reason. Anyway, speaking of summer horror comedies, we have two of the strangest white men in the world, now fighting publicly on Twitter. Trump is banned from Twitter, so but in his love affair with Donald Trump, Elon Musk said recently on Twitter that Trump should just hang it up and disappear into the ether, essentially, because his time is done, or I forget exactly how he put it. Um, I, that's funny to me. I don't know if it's funny to you guys. I find it hilarious that we've got these two guys fighting over literally nothing. Um, and it's just, I don't know.
But
It shouldn't be funny, but
Trump
it is.
finds, but Trump fights about everything. So I mean, it's like his thing.
Yeah. Other in the other rest of the big news for the day, like the things that everybody else is reporting on, this consumer price index was just released today, and the reporting on the consumer price index is that the CPI is rose 8.8% year over year, which is huge. Um, excuse me, 17.1% annual rate, 1.3% for the month. It's a little bit outdated because the consumer price index numbers include gasoline numbers from 2 weeks ago. That's the latest numbers that they have. And when there's a core inflation number that they do that doesn't include gasoline, that also went up 0.7%, which is 8.8% annual rate, which is still huge. A rise in consumer price index is usually considered healthy when you're doing 1 to 3% year over year, and the year over year right now is just astonishingly high. Um, so every all the I mean, I know this is all deep stuff, as far as like, what the heck is the consumer price index? Consumer price index is where they literally like the government takes the average pricing on certain goods that basically everyone buys, like milk, bread, other than foods, they do household goods, they do cleaning supplies, they do clothing, gasoline, other electrical supply, stuff like that. And then they divide it by the number of people in the country, and they figure out what the average person is spending per week in the country, just to basically get by. When the consumer price index rises, it's inflationary pressure, and that means that everybody's paying more for everything. And the traditional control of that is when the government then sets a higher interest rate to control that inflationary pressure, causing people basically to buy less because they have less available money. And then the theory is that that will damp down demand, which, if you remember your basic economics from like 10th grade, demand goes down, supply stays high, prices in theory go down. It's a huge time to test all these theories. I think that we in the arts and public sphere have kind of thought that these theories are not the best in the past, just because I know that when there's more supply of tickets, it doesn't necessarily mean the price goes down. It still costs the same amount for me to put up a show, whether or not there's 35 audience members or 300 audience members. So I need to make that money back somehow, and so ticket prices are not usually set based on exact supply and demand. It's usually set based on tradition and what other advertising there is available. What in you guys' experience, what like you said, you brought this series about because it's something fun to do for your audience in the summer. Like how much like, do you feel like it drives more audience, or do you feel like this is something that helps you generate more audience interaction?
It drives audience because we have a very core set, especially for the splatter zone. So we sold out our splatter zones for all four. We only run 4 shows. We only run a Friday, Saturday in the summer. And we sold out that splatter zone rather quickly. I think it was only maybe 3 weeks. Yeah, tickets went on sale, and within 3 weeks, the splatter zone was sold out. I refuse, as the executive director, and my board backs me on this. Even though Bootless is, finding increased prices, I mean, it's cost more. We have a whole new show crew. I mean, show cast this time around. So I couldn't use our inventory that we normally have because a lot of our actors have moved on from this show and from Bootless even. And I had to buy new clothes. So that cost had to kind of be factored in there. But we refuse to raise ticket prices. We at Bootless thoroughly stand by the fact that art should be accessible, and in order to be accessible, it should be affordable. No one should have to take a mortgage out to go have an evening of theatrical enjoyment, and especially if they want to do dinner before and all of that. And so our splatter zone tickets, if you bought them in advance, were only $30, and our general seating are $25. And they've been that price for at least 10 years. We rarely, we do dynamic pricing. So when you buy them at the door, they're a little bit more. But does it cost supply demand? That not really. But we also have done shows where You know, we do the show because it's a show that needs to be done, and we're not looking at what our ticket income is going to be. We can make that budgetary issue up somewhere else. So we have shows where I may have had a 3-week run and have 50 people show up. And we're a professional theater company. I'm paying the actors, I'm paying the designers, I'm paying crew. The only people who aren't paid are board members who do things, and myself. I'm not a paid executive or artistic director. So we do. We bought new audience risers, and the audience risers, when we bought them during COVID, cost, I think we spent $10,000 and we spent $2,500 on shipping. We had to buy some additional risers for this show to go up. We bought 4, and they cost as much as the 17 that we bought back during the COVID time. So inflation, it sucks for theaters. It sucks for theaters, but we're not taking it out on our artists. We're not going to take it out on our audiences either.
I mean, you know, having produced a lot of stuff, I can tell you labor costs has literally doubled over the course of the pandemic. I have to pay twice as much for labor, you know, just to get people to show up, and it's unfortunate, but you know, like that does get passed on to my clients, but hopefully, you know, it doesn't get passed on to the audience. You know, it isn't a strict supply and demand thing, because you know, we do events for free, we do events for pay, we do, you know, we do events for ticketed things. You know, I'm assuming here, but I'm assuming your celebration of non-binary celebration doesn't have a ticket price. So, you know,
None of our, yeah, I don't recall literally any events that, you know, at least when I was, at least since I've stepped on as full-time organizer, being like, no, they've all been free. And honestly, like, you know, our demographic is mostly like, you know, the trans community and, you know, our supporters. And, you know, in the trans community, like a lot of, you know, I don't want to sit here and say all trans people are poor, but, you know, a large majority of us are not, you know, are living, you know, under poverty. Like we may look fine, but we want to like base this off of like, you know, what is considered poverty. That's where most of us are at.
I mean, most of the country is under the poverty line right
yeah.
now. So,
well, I mean, you know, a cis person is also not going to be discriminated for job hiring practices like a trans person will be. So
right.
there is a difference there. So yeah, a lot of we never do ticketing or anything like that. We just want folks just to show up. And as far as our march, I mean, it's a protest, so it's not going to be like, that's not going to be
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We often have, you know, these kinds of conversations around, you know, production things, because most of my guests are involved in production in one way or another. And I think it's important that like we as artists talk about, you know, why we're doing what we're doing. I wanted to bring to the table a conversation about that has been happening in the Foxosphere, I want to call it. On Fox News, they had a special guest, Jeffrey Tucker, who seems to be a professional agitator, is really what he should be called. But they just billed him as a recent visitor to Monticello. I don't know if you guys recall, a couple of months ago there was a little bit of a kerfuffle about Monticello, because the family of the descendants of the raped, enslaved African Americans were, you know, had finally won concessions from the board of Monticello to be able to attend the yearly celebration at Monticello, like the yearly family picnic, which is supposed to be all of the descendants of Monticello get together at Monticello once a year for a picnic, and it had traditionally excluded black descendants and of Thomas Jefferson, and finally. Over the course of the last decade or so, several directors of the history side of Monticello, as well as several researchers and presenters, have kind of guided the presentations at Monticello on the tours to include more and more information about the slaves that were at Monticello, and really the people who really inhabited Monticello, which was primarily the enslaved folks. And this guy, this idiot, goes on Fox and says how he was dismayed, complaining about how his tour guide overemphasized Thomas Jefferson's history as a slave owner. Quote, I just thought that Monticello would be protected from this disease of wokeism. I don't know where to go with that. As presenters, as artists, as people who, you know, talk to the public, I personally wouldn't call it wokeism to present like an honest history of a place that I'm providing a presentation on. Like where do you guys fall? Like, you know, is this wokeism to, like, you know, talk about the fact that Thomas Jefferson owned and raped slaves? Like, I don't know.
I mean, I would say it's history, and the thing about history is that it is what it is, and you can try to interpret it in different directions, but the truth of the matter is everything still happened, whether you want to bring light to one thing or another. And if I mean, I don't know what to say. If you don't like it, too bad. It's the facts. So I would say no. It's not wokeism. It's our society moving in the direction that it should have moved back in the 50s or back in the turn of the century of the last century, because we need to be aware of what is going on and in our country and what has gone on. So I wouldn't say no. I would say no, it's not wokeism. It's presenting the facts as they are, and people being butthurt about the fact that they have to hear it now.
I think it's really just this individual just being really uncomfortable with the fact that, like, you know, you're no longer gonna get like the sweet and simple version of history. You know, like this is a harsh reality. Slavery was not a good time at all. There's nothing. It's reality. That, like, this country was built on the backs of slaves, and I think that a lot of folks who are sitting around being like, "Oh, the American dream," are not realizing that this was never the American dream. This wasn't the American dream is just, it's not for folks that are indigenous who had their land stolen. It was not for you know, Africans who did not want to come here, who were forced to come here and forced to work. Like, it, you know, the concept of American dream is, you know, from settlers. And I think they, you know, they need to kind of, like, you know, face the fact that this is reality. Like, this is what happened. Folks should know that this, you know.
Yeah, I wonder. I constantly wonder at the like pushback against just reality. Like, if you look at all of the pushback, you know, like there's, you know, pushback against gay rights. There's pushback against women's rights. There's pushback against trans rights. There's pushback against history being taught, actual history being taught. There's pushback against even civil rights and black freedom. And you know, like when you get down to it, like I wonder if it's not just a problem of like a lot of people grew up uh, without a sense of realism, a sense of reality, and you know, like just sudden. I don't even know that it's sudden, like, but just being presented with reality seems to be a step too far for a lot of folks. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I know that when we did the trans march last year, I we kept getting a lot of feedback from like, you know, concerned parents about some of the things that are said at the march, either it be speakers' testimonials or just some of the chants that we say. And I was the one last year that was bold enough to say, like, listen, you know, the realities that we face are just not going to be family friendly. You know, being a
I
slavery,
don't
like being
understand
a
how
descendant of
it's.
slavery is not family
I don't
friendly.
understand
Like,
how it's not family friendly though. Like, whose family are we talking about? Like, it's family friendly to me. Like, my family would be fine.
like I, yeah, we like they didn't like how like certain folks were, you know, giving testimonies about what they experienced during your trans youth, and I'm just like, well, this is I don't know what to tell you. This is reality. I mean, instead of complaining about it, you have all these resources. Why don't you help out youth organizations so that you don't have to go through these situations to the point where they're you know, talking about it during the march? Like we got a lot of feedback for it. I'm like, you know, like what's going on with you know, the detention camps isn't family friendly. And children are involved in those. What's going on with these laws that are putting into like in into into Congress, like as it revolves around LGBT people, isn't family friendly. Um, you know, Black trans women being murdered at disproportionate rates is not family friendly. It's reality.
I mean,
You know,
shootings in
we
schools
don't
isn't
live.
family friendly
It's not
either.
No,
family
yeah,
friendly.
right.
Like this is real life. I don't know what you want us to do. Like
Well, okay, my husband's a teacher, and what gets me is the fact that I asked him, I said, you know, are the parents, and he says it's the parents, it's not the kids. The kids only grow up doing whatever the parents are so like they're telling these, as you said, the concerned parents, and that's the whole thing. If you ask the kids are like, we don't care because it's my friend, it's this or it's that. So what if this person over here has two moms? Big deal. But it's the concerned parents all the time that are all like, oh, but my child won't understand. It's like your child could understand a hell of a lot more if you'd shut up and learn something yourself, right?
yeah, exactly that definitely exactly that. Like a lot of youth don't really care. They're like, oh, this is a thing, cool, we support it, where's all the fun? Like, and
Listen,
that's
yeah, at Bootless, we have Shaun just directed a show for Christmas where we took It's a Wonderful Life and we adapted it and we brought it up into modern time. We modernized it. We gender neutralized it in a sense. So the angel is Casey, and it was played by a non-binary actor of ours. We've done Orange is a New Musical, and let me tell you, you know, I had people walk out, and there was an older couple during one of the, prison sex scenes that was going on. This is the most disgusting thing we've ever seen. Hey, there's the door. I got your money. I can't help that you're uptight. This is art. Art is for everyone. And how you interpret it is how you interpret it. And we're not about to sit here and say, oh, we're concerned about what's going on here. Because I tell you, be concerned. Be concerned out on the street. Be concerned out on this. I don't care, but don't be concerned in here because I'm kicking you out.
Right.
art is up
It's
for
like
interpretation.
My
exactly.
my thing is, yeah, it sure, be concerned. If you're concerned, that's good because there's a reason for your concern, and the reason for your concern is because you're uncomfortable, and the reason you're uncomfortable because this isn't right. Like what is driving your discomfort is the difference between reality and what you would like reality to be, or what reality is in your head, what your imagined perfect world is. And if that's driving your discomfort, then you need to re-examine whatever the heck it is you think is a perfect world, because unfortunately we all live here. We're all people.
I agree with you, James. And that's it. I think that art is a great way. We look at art as being a conversation starter. And that's how the church that we're in, that was one of their things. It thoroughly was like, yes, first off, we just lost the pastor, and he was a gay married man, okay, of this Lutheran church. And when he came in, he was like, I am with you all the way here, because art and theater is conversation, and it should make you uncomfortable, because when you're uncomfortable is when you open your eyes and start looking around to figure it out, right? I mean, so yes, totally agree with you, James. Uncomfortable is where we want you to be, because maybe then you're going to start learning something.
Right. So and on that note, congratulations on making a trans Philly Trans March uncomfortable for some folks, because good, they're uncomfortable. That means they're learning something. Um, uh, we recently, have had several incidents in the city of Philadelphia. A lot of gun violence, as is. I don't want to say as is usual for a city, but almost is usual for a city in the U.S. There's been an uptick in gun violence across the nation. It's not just Philadelphia. It's not unique to here. It's not a unique problem to the city of Philadelphia. The pandemic has worn away a lot of the weak spots in our social safety net, and made people feel more at risk, which also I think is adding to this white nationalist, male centric narrative that's being pushed. Like you have a lot of people who feel more at risk who never felt at risk before. But aside from that, and that's also probably why mass shootings are lately, well, forever really, typically perpetrated by white men. But you have an uptick in gun violence across the entire country. It's when you look at it, and we've talked about this before on this show. When you look at gun violence and you look at violence in general, it's just people who've lost faith in the system, trying to create a new system in which they have control over their own resolutions. But on July 5th, on July 4th, there was a shooting at a fireworks and parade on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. Two police officers were shot. They both recovered. They're both in the hospital and or recovering. They did not die. But the morning of July 5th, the I want to say knee-jerk response of City Council was to, especially the City Council President Darrell Clark, was to say that they were going to push to reinstate stop and frisk as a technique that the Philadelphia Police Department.
It never stopped.
Right.
It never stopped.
They never stopped.
It never stopped.
No.
They just wanted to make it official.
Right. Well, I mean, I think, from if you take it from a city council person's perspective, they stopped hearing that it was a problem. So they assumed that, they had stopped. No,
it never stopped. I mean, I'm just saying this as a Black person from Philly, and specifically as especially as it relates. Sorry, I told you I was going to get tongue twisted. Especially as it relates to the LGBT community, it never stopped. Daryl Clark, this is the same person that wanted to spend $14 million on tasers after Walter Wallace. It never stopped. They just said it stopped because they were getting a lot of pushback from these from various groups about the city, PTM being one of them, on their use on like the over policing as well as the use of like excessive force as revolves around protesters. But it never really stopped. This was just they've been wanting to do stop and frisk for a long time because of the uptick in violence, but they just wanted to make it official because of that situation on July 4th. This was just, ammunition for them, but it never really stopped. Like, people are still being stopped by the police, specifically folks that do street survival sex work or folks who are not even doing that and are just being accused of it. Like, it never stops. I'm sorry. I'm just, because people keep saying, oh, like they're going to bring it back. And I'm like, it never stopped. If you go to certain neighborhoods, people are still being stopped by the police for no reason.
We have
specifically
the same in Wilmington. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
it's a relatively universal problem in everywhere except for the suburbs.
Yeah.
Like police overreach and police, basically the police are the resource that every major city has invested in since the 1980s. And as I've said before, and I probably sound like a broken record to people who actually watch this show consistently, but I'll keep saying it. When you put all your eggs in one basket, you end up, if you have a problem, that's the resource you turn to. If I buy a new piece of equipment, what am I going to do? I'm not going to not use it. If I have a problem, I'm going to turn to that piece of equipment and see if I can use it to solve it, especially if it's expensive. Especially if it's the most that I've spent, that year. So yeah, the problem is, and these policy failures, the problem of turning to the police to resolve every sort of problem that we have, goes all the way back to the 80s, goes back to Reaganomics and like the tough on crime legislation of the era, which included such popular Democrats as Joe Biden. So we really, I will give Biden one little piece of credit here. He seems to be a politician that, I don't know whether it's pragmatism or actual change of thought, but he's recently started to kind of follow the narrative of reducing the use of police as a problem-solving tool. He started to talk about, providing other resources and community resources, which early on in his presidency he was not talking about at all, and Kamala Harris was not talking about it at all, specifically because she's has a background as a prosecutor, and so she's heavily invested in the use of police and the use of law enforcement and the criminal justice system as a problem solving tool. In response to that speech on January 5th, the council members that did not participate, Helen Gim, Jamie Gauthier, and Kendra Brooks all released a statement with citing studies and evidence that stop and frisk A does not work, B is used in communities of color and diverse communities more frequently, and is used pretty much solely to act as an excuse for negative police interactions. It's used by police to excuse their interactions with people of color. Similarly to non-emergency traffic stops, which Councilmember Thomas made, got a law through Philadelphia to decriminalize several traffic stops so that they couldn't be a primary reason to stop somebody any longer. These things are all, like well documented as reasons and ways in which police forces kind of exert and justify their violence. And it's I'm both heartened and dismayed. It seems like we have some folks on city council that recognize the problem, but whenever there is a large portion of both the city voting constituency and city council that don't recognize the problem or don't just wish for a return to hard-nosed policing, when police would just stop somebody for looking the wrong way.
I mean, this is a result of gentrification. I mean, a lot of folks, and I'm saying this as someone that was displaced by gentrification, whose family was displaced from gentrification. Like, the reason why a lot of folks want to go through the hard-nosed policing is like, I mean, of course, the uptick in crime, but why do we have an uptick in crime? We have an uptick in crime because of gentrification, of folks being displaced from their homes with nowhere to go, such as like what's happening now with the UC townhomes. I mean, that is why we're in this situation. I work in the Fairmount area, and I remember just standing outside in my Legends of the Hidden Temple rainbreaker, waiting in a very long line to get food, and someone who owned the building that I just happened to be standing in front of, because it's like, the line was really long, called the cops and thought that I was a homeless person, when really I'm just wearing a windbreaker because it's rainy and I'm waiting in line for food. But for some reason I gave off homeless vibes, and they called the cops and said that I was panhandling, when really I was just outside waiting in line. I mean, it's these folks who own these buildings and property owners that are going to those extreme routes of over policing for their property value. And it's just like, it's really getting ridiculous, because the city belongs to everyone. It doesn't just belong to these folks that own these high-rise apartment buildings or these various properties that New Age Realty or OCF owns. Like, it's for everyone, and even folks that are houseless. So sorry.
No, it's absolutely, I absolutely agree. And I just wonder at the dedication of folks to, like, I was talking with a friend the other day. I'm starting another business to give tours on the Delaware on a sailboat, and in any business that you run, you have to consider the economics of it. You have to consider what the cost is, what hard costs you have, what soft costs you have, what the value is to the people that are buying it. And I never approach business from a perspective of I'm going to make a ton of money. I always approach business from a perspective of I need to break even. And if I make money, then great. But let's break even first. And I often wonder at the dedication of people to the capitalist mantra of make as much money as you can as fast as you can. I think that's done the most disservice to us as a society of anything that has come out of American capitalism. At any rate, it's 11:01 according to my clock. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I will give Rosanne and Shaun last words, and then we'll go with Bree for last thoughts. any last thoughts, Roseanne or Shaun? Anything that you want to take to the audience? Anything about Evil Dead the musical?
I'll just say about Bootless again. We have a mission that's for emerging artists, and again, we are a professional theater company. We support, and we do strongly support the LGBTQ community. Most of our artists belong to that community, and we're gaining more and more into the audiences being part of that community as well. And then I'll let Shaun do the final plug for his show.
Yeah, come out and see Evil Dead the musical. Tickets have really gone. I think we only have one night with a large amount of tickets left available. So check the website, bootless.org, bootlessstageworks.org.
No, bootless.org.
Bootless.org. That's what I thought. I had it right the first time. For more information, and hope to see you out there.
All right, and Bree, any last thoughts and information about the non-binary People's Day celebration?
I would say follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Philly Trans March, and you can also follow on Facebook, same thing. You can also visit our website, phillytransmarch.org. But I would say that Instagram is the most up to date because I'm one of those social media people that are like, hey, let me update every 5 minutes. You can follow us there for up to date information, specifically if we're going to be outdoors or indoors. But either way, the event is not going to be canceled. We're still going to continue on. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for being our guest. I'm gonna take you guys off screen and go to a one-up of me, but I wanted to thank you. Feel free to hang out in the green room here, and I will be done with outros in just a minute if you wanted to catch up on anything. Other than that, thanks so much, and really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks to you folks who watch us every week. I really appreciate it. We don't do this for no reason. We do this show to provide a platform for people to bring attention to their work, their thoughts, their ideas, and we try and bring a different perspective than perhaps you would get by watching the news or reading Facebook or what have you. We go live every Wednesday. Well, I suppose not every Wednesday, but most Wednesdays we go live at 10 a.m. And we're live on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Mob Crush, and YouTube. So you can catch us on any of those spots. You can also watch the instant replay. Feel free to hit like. Please, absolutely, if you saw something interesting or you want to share information with folks about one of the shows or events that we cover, share a link to your friends to the broadcast. And if you saw anything that you think somebody else would be interested in, please share it to them via the share button on social media. Subscribe to us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Mob Crush to get an instant notification of when we go live. And you don't have to watch live, but we appreciate if you do. And if you'd like to support us, please consider subscribing via Patreon, patreon.com/LightThiefProductions. So tune in next week. We have Kyle and Dan with Hannah and the Healing Stone, and we look forward to seeing you then. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody.